pleasure to be here with you. Just 3 words before I start. I'm an Italian, living in Barcelona since 19 years. I lived in Japan for 12 years. And I'm amazed to be surrounded by such an incredible audience. So I wanted to start telling you a story. And this story starts in 1944 in California. A young girl, 16 years old, is fighting to become a bus driver. She's rejected in the first job, but she tries hard. That young lady's name is Maya Angelou. She becomes the first bus driver, Black American bus driver in the US. But how a bus driver becomes a poet and a social activist? Well, probably some of you know the story. She was 7 when her mother boyfriend actually raped her. He was sentenced to jail and then he was killed. But Maya stayed for around 6 years mute. She didn't say a word. But she grew interest in poetry. And she started reading about and memorizing about Shakespeare and Edgar Allan Poe. So there was something inside of her that had to be discovered. On another century, and on another side of the world, the illegitimate son of Mr. Piero Vinci, young Leonardo, couldn't get a proper school career, as all the illegitimate sons did not at that time. So was driven to find a way through the arts. And he was introduced to the workshop, the bottega of Maestro Verrocchio. When he showed up, Maestro Verrocchio asked the young Leonardo, what can you do? You know, the proud young boy said, I'm actually a military engineer and I'm a sculptor. Well, it seemed that that thing didn't impress Maestro Verrocchio that much. And on the way to the door, young Leonardo turned and said, and by the way, I can also paint. Now, even Leonardo wasn't aware of his ability of painting. The author of 2 of the most probably famous paintings of all time, Last Supper and La Gioconda, also known as Mona Lisa, had to develop abilities of self-awareness. Ancient Greeks invested time to search for the truth. Actually, philosophy, the etymology of the word philosophy, comes from the love for knowledge. So philosophers were looking for what was the truth, and the truth can only be achieved through knowledge. And Socrates actually defined the essence of truth to lie within the human being. And that can only happen when we are able to better understand ourselves, who we are. Now, in ancient Greek time, it was quite a dishonorable field to work. You know, philosophers had to invest time in thinking. They had to think and pursue their quest for the truth. They couldn't waste time in doing labor work or other things that could involve something related to manual activities. And it's very strange because it's the opposite of what is happening today. The ones that should lead us today are super busy. They have no time for others. They have the best intentions sometimes in organizations to get in one-to-one and in meeting with business people, but often they do not have even time for themselves. I was very intrigued by your presentation about how we should charge our own batteries. But we are too busy, to take care about ourselves, to even think about what we want. And then, what happens? We complain about the nature of our relationship. I think I went too fast. Okay. We complain about the nature of our relationships. We think that our relationships are fake, are superficial. And what we really need is someone authentic to lead us. But what is authenticity? I loved your story. Authenticity, where does that come from? I like to be authentic. But, I worked in over 45 countries around the world with something like 20,000 people. And I often ask this business leader, who are you? I say, I'm the president of this organization. I have 3,000 people been working for me. Yeah, but who are you? What is your purpose? Why do you wake up every morning? What do you like to do? What is your inner motivation? And most of the time, there is no answer. That's too painful. And that's why sometimes I call this leader a little bit like the tribute bands. They emulate some of the way of dressing up, the way of moving of the typical very famous bands. He dresses up like Mick Jagger, or he sings like Freddie Mercury. And that's the best compliment you can get. You cannot overcome that. You can never get better. And after a while, people get a little bit bored. You sound the same every time. And it's not you. There is no essence of yours in there. So what is authenticity? It was interesting because around 20 years ago, an American consultant named Bill George tried to find the magic recipe of leadership. He was one of the hundreds who tried to find what is the magic recipe of leadership. And he interviewed 123 people with different genders, different background, age, race, to try to find out if there were some common trait, if we can identify a magic recipe. Well, of course, there were some shared competencies and skills. But the thing that stood out the most is that basically every one of them was constantly referring to their personal stories. They had a story to share, and the story was linked to their personal values. Now, values are important and they have to be lived in a certain way so that they become credible. Values are the only thing that when everything is lost and you are in the middle of the night and you do not know where to go, you know they're going to be there. You know that you will follow your North Star and you will never be lost. It's like a lighthouse in the middle of the sea. Now, values are values if they are tested under pressure. I can say that one of my values is honesty, but I have to double check if someone tries to bribe me with 3 or 4 bags full of money, if still that value is valid for me. Now, the other incredible thing that Bill George found out in his investigation was that these brilliant leaders had their values coming from very challenging situations. Sometimes these situations were affecting a personal loss, a failure in the working environment. Now, John Barth is a novelist and says that the story of your life is your story. It's not your life. You told us a part of the story of your life. And how is that different? How the story of our life is different from our life? Because the story of our life, it's the narrative that we tell ourselves and others over and over again. And we incorporate details that we want to embody our values, our way of living. Now, the stories can be told from different angles. I can tell the story as a victim. I was the poor boy. Everybody else did this to me. I am the victim of the situation. Or on the other side, I could tell my story as the hero, the one that overcome all the trouble of the universe. What is interesting about authentic leaders, the one that truly discover themselves, and that at a certain time, they get this helicopter view. They start seeing things from top, learning from the situation they lived, and seeing what they can do to get better. When the 75 members of the Stanford Development Congress were asked about what is the key skill that authentic leaders need to develop, the response was almost unanimous. It was about self-awareness. It was about understanding who you are. Where are you coming from? So self-awareness, it's really about knowing your true essence, reconnecting with your true self. And how do you develop this self-awareness? First of all, becoming less invulnerable, accepting the conversation from others. We have believed that leaders in organization need to have all the answers. But today we need people who are more human, less Superman and more human, to have true and constructive relationships. And how we develop that? It's about trust. Now, when this goes on and on all the time. Okay, how do we develop trust? Trust, according to David Meister, it's based on credibility, reliability, and intimacy divided for self-orientation. Now, let's see how do we give trust to people. About credibility. When we need to hire someone, what is the first thing that we take a look at? Their CV, where they worked. If we go to a doctor to get credibility, to trust them, the doctor puts all the diploma in the office. And when we need to do shopping, what we do to get credibility, we actually take a look at the review of other people, how many stars they get. Now, the second one is about reliability. And reliability is measured by how people are keep on doing things. If they do what they told us they will do. And of course, this encourages a snowball effect. The more we get trust, the more we get back, the more we give back. And the third one is about intimacy. How well do we know the other person? How we connect with them from the human point of view. Is the secrets that you tell me safe with me? Now, everything should be divided by self-orientation. If I only think about myself and never about the others, how they're going to be trusted back by somebody else. And in a business environment, it's funny because credibility and reliability are super well assessed, but little value is given to intimacy. How well do we know people? How we create that safe space that allows us to receive feedback with psychological safety, without the threat of doing something back in exchange for that. And of course, this opens up a new world. We do not only become better leaders, we become better human beings, and we create better authentic connection with others. And also this implies more self-disclosure, sharing our personal instruction manuals with someone else. And self-disclosure, it doesn't mean that I need to share with the people I'm with what type of shampoo do I use, how many times per week do I bath. It's sharing what's really important to me, how do I like to work, how do I like to communicate, what is that makes me afraid of, what are my deepest fear, and the same thing for the other person. Of course, in order to do that, we need to copy with pressure. Pressure is coming all over, and business, it's about running a marathon. It's not the 100 meters. There is a long way. We need time to rest. They say that the depression, the word depressed, has the antidote in the word itself. It's deep rest. And You know, a leader today, I create an analogy. It's the bus driver. You are not only responsible for yourself, you're responsible also for the other people you get on that bus. Now, sometimes the bus driver can be drunk or can be tired. And when you ask the bus driver, are you drunk? Most of the time what they say, no, I'm not. Can you drive? Oh, yes, I can. And we see the disaster that actually can happen. So recharging our battery, it's not only a personal requirement, it's a duty also towards the others. I learned once an Arab proverb, and this proverb was saying that if someone tells you that you look like a camel, ignore him. If another person tells you that you look like a camel, do not care. But if a third person tells that you look like a camel, go and buy yourself a mirror. Thank you.